Okay. Hi there! So, this is the third video that I promised from earlier of my other two videos, ones I did on In Fabric and Night and The Lighthouse. The third and final film I wanted to wrap up on was not exactly a horror film, but it does have elements of one, and it is from a director who made their name big on a horror movie that came out a couple of years ago, Jennifer Kent, Babadook. The name of the film is called The Nightingale, which is actually kind of more of a historical revenge thriller, starring... I actually wrote down some of the names of these actors because I must confess I haven't seen them in anything before. Alison Sosi, Sam Calfin, and Bekali Ganamadbar. God, I'm terrible with other people's names. And what the film is about is that it takes place in the early 1820s, set around the period when the British were in charge of the continent of Australia, when they were basically using it as a prison land. And an Irish convict by the name of Claire finds herself in a particularly horrifying situation as she is she's there to act as a performer to British troops that are in charge of colonializing the area. And one of the things she does that, she sings for them, she entertains them, but she is also frequently, no, it's not frequently, but one night she is actually sexually assaulted and raped by this lieutenant played by Sam Calfin. And when she and her husband attempt to escape from them, the lieutenant and his soldiers come in, and not only do they rape her again, but also brutally kill him and their baby. After those horrible acts of violence, of abuse that are inflicted upon them, she goes on a quest to try and hunt down the people responsible for it. And along the way, she ends up coming across a local Aborigine named Billy, played by Bakali Ganabar, who helps her along. But at the same time, they don't entirely get along with each other due to the stuff that's been going on in Australia. She doesn't like him because he's black. He doesn't like her because she's white. But they kind of have to force to kind of get over their differences in order to help each other out. And a majority of this film, as long as it is, I will not lie, is a really, really engaging thriller. It's blunt and brutal as hell. Like, the aforementioned rape scenes happen within the first half hour, and they are brutal, they are up close, they do not cut away, they do not shy away from how horrible it is. I even heard reports that when the film premiered at a couple of film festivals last year, there were reports of walkouts and people just being disgusted with what was happening on screen. And I can totally understand why. These scenes are horribly uncomfortable to watch. Even during the second rape scene that happens, there's other acts of violence that happen in it that are just that almost make the rape scene look tame by comparison. Like what happens to the baby is just I hated watching it. I was watching it on my computer with my headphones, and my girlfriend was right over to the side, and whenever acts of violence would happen in the movie, I would almost react as if I was watching a horror movie and there was, scenes that made me jump. Not because I was scared, but just because I was just disturbed at how sudden and shocking the violence was. And she'd be like, "Are you okay?" And I'm just like, "I'm sorry, this movie's really disturbing." And it's also a film where you can tell the director, Jennifer Kent, she's basically saying, a lot of things with a sledgehammer with this, saying colonialism is bad, abuse of power is bad, racism is bad, and she is not afraid of shoving it in your face for nearly 2.5 hours. It still manages to retain its effectiveness throughout. even when the movie meanders in its long running time, it still feels focused and on point with its goals. And that's, like in help of the part that all the performances are incredibly committed to this material. It doesn't feel like anyone's asleep at the wheel. Nobody's phoning it in. I know I've heard some criticisms from some people that kind of think that the script is a little thin or broadly sketched, but it never really occurred to me that way. Like, everything felt it was done in a realistic manner. And that's in part to, especially the performance of the actress who played Claire, Alison Frescasi. I'm sorry if I cannot pronounce your name, but if you're watching this, you did a terrific job. I haven't seen you in anything else. From what I understand, you were in a couple episodes of Game of Thrones. I know of I know some friends who watch Game of Thrones that can probably point out to me, oh yeah, I know her. She played blah 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 in this, and I'd be like, cool. I haven't seen her in anything else, but she was great here. She is so excellent at showing trauma and PTSD and just like such like the feeling of just the horror she's been witness to. Even before the events of the movie, you can tell she's a disturbed woman because of the thing she had to deal with. I apologize. I'm starting to feel a little bit funny. I think my girlfriend got me sick.
Sorry, sweetie.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we like kissing a lot, and she's coming down with something, and maybe I'm starting to get it too, so and the other two performers that I mentioned, Sam Calfin and Bikali, they're also quite good too. Calfin plays the lieutenant who's responsible for a lot of the film's horrors, and man, this is like one of those guys where it's like, you think maybe he might be able to do something, or he might come off as a reasonable guy, but just the more the movie goes on, it's just like, even, it's like early on before he actually starts doing these horrible things, it's like you kind of think to yourself, he might be kind of a reasonable gent or something. No. Or even, after he does the shit that kicks off the events of the movie, like, he ends up coming across a child that, like, you think to yourself, like, well, he seems to be pretty friendly with the kid. Maybe he's okay with that or something. It's like, no, he tries to force the kid into killing other people, and when the kid fails him, he leaves him to be, like, ravaged by, whatever kind of hostile environments are out there in the outback. Or you think to yourself, maybe he might actually show some mercy, and it's like, no, he's just a completely ruthless, evil person. Meanwhile, Bakali, who plays the Aborigine that's helping out Claire on her journey, Bakali Gunbar's character is played by Bakali Ganamanabar. I am so sorry if I can't pronounce your name. I am so terrible with those names. Who plays Billy. He's quite good in the film too. Like, he kind of, like, when you kind of see him initially, you kind of think, like, man, he's just kind of a, kind of a prick. I mean, like, like, he's definitely in kind of a, bad situation here too. But thankfully, the film is smart enough to develop his character, and once he learns, like, why Claire is on her quest of vengeance, he begins to become a lot more caring and understanding of her. And the friendship that they have really does work. And it also ties into how the film is about kind of like, systematic oppression. Of how, it's like, he kind of, it's like, he's just kind of like, like, you white people all look the same to me, why should I give a shit? You English have destroyed our land, you've killed my people. But it's like when she explains to her, hey, look, I'm not a British person, I'm an Irish, like, we get as much crap from the British as you guys do, we're in the same boat together here, and their dynamic does work in the movie, and it's like, it's interesting how the film has these nuances in midst between of how much it hammers in some of its, like, other points. That being said, I did have issues with the film's final 15 minutes, where I couldn't help but think it kind of cops out. I don't want to say why due to spoilers, but it was just one of those things where in the movie I was thinking, like, it's the movie's doing a really excellent build up, and I've debated with other people as to why I think it cops out and why they say, well, if you think about it from this perspective, and it's like, yeah, but at the same time, like, this is a story of vengeance, and it is a rape revenge movie, and I suppose because I'm just so used to that, how it plays out in other versions of this kind of tale, maybe the way it concluded, it's like, I'm all for subverting audience expectations, but I almost kind of felt like maybe this was an instance where it shouldn't have been done. Maybe it should have ended more conventionally. And as I've mentioned before, the film's running time is pretty daunting. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes. And when you look at Kent's previous movie, which ran at a drum tight 90 minutes, I wish she didn't go as long as she did with this. But at the same time, she shows such considerable control behind the camera that I hope it doesn't take her a long time to make another movie again, because the gap between the Babadook and this felt so long. And this is only her second film. I can only imagine what she'll do next. I just gotta say this, but if she ever wants to get back to the horror genre again, Hollywood Studios, if you guys are still interested in rebooting Hellraiser, give her the keys to the kingdom. She'd do a great job. Anyway, those are my thoughts on The Nightingale. This won't end up on my top of the year, but it is a film that I do consider to be impressive, and at the very least, like, maybe it won't make my full top. It won't make my full top 10, but if I do like a top 20 or 25 kind of list, I can see it definitely squeaking in there somehow. I hope it does. And who knows, maybe if I ever give it a chance to watch it again, maybe I might come away more positively. But as it stands, The Nightingale is a really solid revenge thriller. Definitely not for all tastes, and for sensitive viewers, don't even bother. But for those who are willing to take the plunge, I can definitely recommend it. Anyway, have a good day.